Hannah Murray. TRE in the afternoon.
Good afternoon. Joining us in the studio now is Dominic and Deborah. They are ambassadors of AA on the Costa del Sol and are coming on the show to talk a bit about their stories and experiences. Hello to you both.
Hi.
Hi, Hannah.
Thank you both for coming in. So let's start with you, Dominic, if we can.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experiences with AA. When did you when was your first meeting, if you like? What point did you get to that you felt like you needed to go?
So that would be November 92. I went into a treatment centre in England, in Plymouth. And that's where I was introduced to AA. So it was, there are different types of treatment centres. This particular one is what's known as a 12-step based treatment centre. The 12 steps is the basic, the 12 steps of AA. Basically,
it's a programme, isn't it?
Is the basic programme of AA, and lots of other 12-step fellowships now.
Okay.
So that's where I was introduced to AA, yeah.
And was it you that felt like you needed to go to that centre, or were you advised to go? Because taking that first step can be really, that's quite a big thing for a lot of people, isn't it? Realising that they need the help.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. And people find it in many different ways, actually. Some people maybe hit a rock bottom and they make a decision, or sometimes there's a family intervention, or sometimes could be a medical intervention. And sometimes, I think in my case, to be quite honest, it was a culmination of circumstances. And I'm not sure if left to my own devices, I would have actually found my way into recovery. But I did. My wife at the time we were offered funded places in England, and she decided to go, and I was also offered a place at the same time, and I actually didn't want to go, to be quite honest, even though my life was a terrible mess, complete chaos, but such is the grip of alcoholism that I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
But I did go. Primarily for the reason that I just didn't want to be left on my own. So I went, and the kind of rest is history, as they say, but I found sobriety, and I've stayed sober ever since.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And with that first meeting, I think people who haven't been to an AA meeting, who think maybe they need to, might be nervous of the idea of sitting in a room full of strangers and having to admit certain things and talk about yourself, talk about your issues in front of a room of strangers. I think that probably scares a lot of people. How did you find it that first time?
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of the way it is for most people. There are exceptions. There are some people, I've heard stories, they walk through the door of AA and they literally feel like they've gone home. And they absolutely fit, and that is some people's story. Generally, it's very frightening, very scary. But I have to say, the fellowship was very welcoming to me, and I think it is in general very welcoming, especially on the Costa del Sol, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot smaller than it would be in London or the big cities in England. Everybody tends to know each other. If you're new, you'll be noticed. People remember your name. And it's worth just mentioning that a lot of people think, well, I've got to go there and I have to speak and I have to do this and I have to do that, and you don't have to do anything.
Right.
We always say to people, just come, relax, sit on the chair, just listen. You don't need to speak, and just take it from there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And I guess even though people are nervous or afraid even that first time, that fear probably goes very quickly once they realise they're in a room of people who have experienced very similar things, if not exactly the same things, and are all on your side. You know, they're all wanting to support you, and you know, you don't feel like an outsider. You don't feel like the one that's got the problem. You're all in a room with people who are going, yeah, that's me too. Yeah,
that's right. That's absolutely right, and that's quite often that is exactly what happens. And to walk through the door of AA is, you know, I think, as you said, it's no small thing. So to actually do that, there has to be some acknowledgement that something is seriously wrong. You know, as somebody once said, you know, joining AA is not a career move. You know, it's a move from desperation, really. So when you walk through that door and you're welcomed, and you're made to feel welcome, and we put the kettle on, and you have some biscuit and some tea, and then you hear people's stories and you relate, quite often for the first time in your life, because most people who walk through that door think, this is only happening to me. You know, okay, I can see other people are drinking and have problems, but they're not like me. There's something about me that's uniquely different.
Yeah.
And you walk into that room, you hear people share, excuse me, and the amount of times I've heard people say they were dumbstruck because somebody shared in that meeting and they thought they were sharing their story.
Wow.
And that's quite often the response that people have. And then you feel that you're in the right place.
Yeah, definitely. And how much has AA helped you on your journey then to stay sober?
For me, it's the foundation of my journey, of my life, now of my sobriety. Without a doubt. It's the most important thing that I do. It's the most important thing that I'm involved in. It takes up quite a bit of my time, which I enjoy, because I get the benefits from that.
Yeah.
So it's not it has to be said, it's a lifestyle. Being sober is it's not a thing that just happens and then, okay, I did that, I got sober, I just get on with my life. To join AA, and a lot of people do that, and I'm not denigrating that in any way, but to actually join the fellowship of AA and become a part of that will change your life. Amazing. For the better. Yeah. Hopefully.
So how often would you go to meetings?
Nowadays, I will do at least one. Some weeks I may do 2 or 3 meetings, but I always make a point to do at least one meeting each week.
Great.
Yeah.
And excuse my ignorance, I hope it's okay what I ask you, but for you personally, why do you go to the meetings? Are you going to the meetings to kind of remind yourself as a refresher why you're sober, or are you going for a bit of a social element as well? What do you get out of the meetings each time?
Well, both of those things, and so much more as well, actually. And I think for me, and I think for many people at the beginning, one of our little phrases is, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. So when I first walked through the door and joined AA, I didn't have much to give. I was empty, really. So that was a time when I needed to be given, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, I need to be given compassion and love and understanding. I didn't have those things to give. But then as time goes on, I start to develop those things myself, and I can pass that on to other people.
Yeah.
So, but also not to be complacent about it. On the other hand, it is also the fact that I need to be reminded. You know, part of the illness of alcoholism is your mind doesn't work in the way that other people's mind works. And it's easy for us to have mental blank spots, and we forget. Someone once said it's an illness of forgetting, you know. So it's important to remember why I'm there and what I'm doing, and then also to transmit the message to other people, and also to enjoy the social aspects of it as well.
So lovely that you're able to help other people now. That really shows what a journey that you've been on. You needed that help at the beginning, and now you're helping others. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dominic, for sharing your story. Really appreciate it. We also have Deborah with us in the studio. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Hannah.
Thank you for coming in. Could you just come a little bit closer to the mic now?
Okay.
Perfect. So can you tell us your story, your journey?
Mm-hmm. I got sober in 2004. I started drinking in my early 20s, and I would say I was a casual drinker to start off with. I didn't start drinking alcoholically straight away, which some people do. And my drinking progressed from there. And I think I was quite shy, and I felt alcohol sort of gave me the courage to talk to people and to go to parties and, just have a good time. But the progression of it, so from my 20s, I would say I had a lot of fun. And in my 30s, there were a few little incidences that made me think, I don't think normal people do this. I started drinking secretly. I felt that I had to drink a lot of the time. I felt very nervous and very anxious. And so that secret drinking made me feel very ashamed, and it progressed from there. I moved around a lot. I wasn't a very happy person. I ended relationships. I changed jobs. I moved countries. It was like I was looking for something, but I didn't know what I was looking for. And I was miserable, and I drank too much, but I never put the two together.
Interesting.
So that was through my 30s, and I was 45 when I got sober. And I had tried so many different things to stop drinking. I went to university as a mature student. I drank all the way through university, alcoholically, but I still managed to graduate. I used to think I'll feel better about myself if I do this. I'll feel better about myself if I get a better job, if I do this. But nothing worked. And I got to the stage where I had contemplated suicide. Oh. And I didn't know anybody I knew a lot of people who drank a lot. I didn't know anybody who admitted to being alcoholic. I didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous. But I came to on my bed on a Friday afternoon, and it had been another morning when I had said, I'm not going to drink today, I'm not going to drink today, I'm not going to drink today. And before I knew it, I had a drink in my hand. And once an alcoholic picks up one drink, you don't know where it's going to end. And that was the case for me that day. And I had come home without even knowing how I got home and passed out. And when I came to, from very deep inside of me, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I need help. And I got to my very first meeting the next day. And I was terrified. Unlike Dominic, I didn't go into a treatment centre. I just came in off the street. And I can still remember thinking, I'll buy a little bottle of brandy and put it in a bottle of Coca-Cola, which is what I used to do. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to have any brandy. I'll just have the Coca-Cola. So I went in with my bottle of Coca-Cola and didn't know what to expect. As Dominic said, everybody was very welcoming. People are, oh, you're new, welcome, come on, sit down, introduce themselves. And people started sharing their stories. And generally in the first meeting, if you've got a newcomer, people share their stories. It's about identification. And somebody said to me, listen for the similarities, not the differences.
Okay.
And so people were sharing their stories. And for the first time ever in my entire life, I thought, it's not just me.
Oh, amazing.
I'm not the only person who feels like this and who drinks secretly, and because people are very open and honest, and they share very openly and honestly. And it was just incredible. And they had said to me, you don't have to say anything, just sit and listen. But for the first time ever, I said, my name's Debbie and I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, bless you.
And that was the most important day of my life, because it turned everything around for me, because I had been an unhappy, fearful person before then. Before I started drinking, I had all my issues, and and when I got into AA, I had to look at those things. So it wasn't just about putting down the drink. Of course, that's the main thing, but that we have a 12-step program, and those 12 steps help me to look at myself as a human being, and to see my faults. And we talk about it being a design for living. AA is a design for living. So I live my life in a different way today because I have this 12-step program. And just my life is completely different today. I don't think about alcohol, although AA is my life, basically. As Dominic said, it's we sponsor people through the steps and go to meetings because you want to carry the message. We do things like this because it's carrying the message. Because I didn't know, as I said, I'd never heard anybody talk about Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know anybody who said they were alcoholic. So we need to get that out there to let people know, Alcoholics is there, and it's there for you if you've got a problem with alcohol, and you'll find a very warm welcome. I'm a contact, so when people look up meetings in certain areas on the Costa del Sol, my name is there, and I often get emails or phone calls from people saying, can I come to a meeting? Do I have to pay anything? What do I do? And so I'll reply to them. And then if I say, if you want, I can meet you in the car park. So I'll meet somebody in the car park and walk in with them, because as Dominic said, it's difficult to walk through the door into a room full of people that you've never met before.
It's nice that the overwhelming thing is that everybody wants everybody else to feel as comfortable as possible.
Oh, definitely.
The whole thing is that it's a really safe environment, isn't it?
Very safe, very welcoming. And, because we've all been there, so we know what it's like. We know what it's like to walk through the door. We know what it's like to be in active alcoholism. It's hell. It's absolute hell. But because of this incredible program, millions of people all over the world get well and live their lives well without alcohol. And I'm incredibly grateful to be an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous and a recovered alcoholic.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
We're running out of time, sadly, and there's so much more I want to ask you about, so maybe we can have another chat. But one of the things I wanted to say, which I'm sure you agree with and can relate to, is that there are obviously different types of alcoholics. I think there's a lot of myths when it comes to alcoholism, and people think you need to be standing on a street corner with a bottle of whiskey at 9 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. And there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily drinking spirits. They're not necessarily drinking to excess every day, but there's binge drinking. Some people won't drink during the week and just go crazy every weekend and think, well, that's okay, I'm fine during the week. And others will be drinking half a bottle of wine or whatever every single day, and they cannot live without that half a bottle of wine, and that's also not great. So there's lots of different levels.
Definitely.
And so how does one loaded question when we haven't got much time, but how does one identify that they're drinking too much, for either of you?
I think if your drinking is causing you a problem, whether it's within your relationships or family or whatever, if it's causing you a problem, then maybe it's time to look at that. But generally, I mean, there's a couple of qualifiers in the big book that it says, if when you earnestly want to stop, you find that you can't, and if when you start drinking you find that you can't stop, or you don't know where it's going to lead to, then you're probably an alcoholic.
Okay.
So if you're having problems and you can't stop drinking on your own, then but nobody will tell you that you're an alcoholic. That's the thing with Alcoholics Anonymous. It's for you to decide. When you go to a meeting, nobody's going to say, oh, yeah, you're definitely an alcoholic. You make that decision yourself.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for coming in today. Really, really appreciate you both being so open and honest with your stories. And I'm sure both of you and AA will continue to help thousands of people around the world. So on the Costa del Sol then, if people are interested, if people want to get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
There's the website. There's aacostadelsol.com. And on there you can find the meetings, you can find information about alcoholism. There's a lot on there, isn't there? I think there's sort of people's stories. So aacostadelsol.com, it's a really good website.
Fantastic. So depending on where people live, they can see where their nearest meeting is. Yeah. And can people just turn up to a meeting? They don't need to make contact beforehand. They can just walk through the door if they want to.
Just walk.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's the meeting list will definitely be on the website. And I think some of the meetings, maybe all of them, but definitely some of them will have contact numbers. So you can actually ring someone up beforehand. And there's also a helpline number which is on the website. So if you rang the helpline, for example, and speak to whoever is manning it at that time, and they could direct you to a meeting, probably give you a contact number if you want to meet someone beforehand, just have a little coffee. And
perfect.
So it'll try and make it as easy as possible for people to get in.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both very much. Thank you, Dominic and Deborah. And the website is aacostadelsol.com. And just to mention, obviously, we're talking about the Costa del Sol, but of course, AA is all around the world. So if you're listening from anywhere other than the Costa del Sol, then of course, have a look on Google and you can find local AA meetings in your area.